Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this video what we're going to do is take a look at this cooktop we've been making in AutoCAD. So if you haven't seen any of that, you can go back through my current videos and you can see that I did make a AutoCAD drawing of this using paper space and doing the dimensions and all the full stuff. So if that's something that you're interested in, please go back and watch that video. In this video what we're going to do is make an assembly of this using Inventor. So what I'm going to do is first create these three parts, and as you can see that we have an eye, a knob, and basically the cooktop. We're going to make all three of those parts in this video, and we're going to assemble it together. And then after that, the next video that's going to follow that will be the actual drawing of this. So I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of everything that it takes to go through this, doing it in Inventor. Alright, so let's jump over to Inventor and get started. So in Inventor, it's always a good idea to have something linked to a project or a specific location of where you know things at. And the reason being is that way it'll keep it all organized in one place for you and you don't have to search all over the place for it. One of the ways I like to get to projects is I'll usually start off by clicking on this new icon here. And here at the bottom you have projects. And usually by default it's going to be at your default one. But if you want to go ahead and create another one, I suggest you select the icon that says projects, and then it's going to bring you to this dialog box. Inside of this dialog box, this is where you're going to decide if you have one that you already created, you can use that, or you can create a new one. And in our case, we're going to go ahead and create a new one. So I'm just going to hit the new icon. It's going to ask me what kind of project that I want to create. I don't have Vault, and Vault is just a data management system that Autodesk uses to keep track of all your AutoCAD and your Inventor files. It'll also do some other files, but those are usually mainly the big two. Alright, so we're going to use the single user one. Let's go ahead and click on next. And in this case, I'm going to change the project name, and I'm just going to call it Cooktop, right? Because that's what we're going to be creating. The next thing you're going to do is give it a location. So where do I want to place this location? And right now I have this set to my documents folder, and it's under a folder called Inventor and then Cooktop. So we'll take a look at that later once we develop and do all of our drawing, right? But that's where it's going to be located. So I can also, if I want to add a library or some of that nature, I can hit the next icon button. If you don't have a need for a library, just go ahead and hit finish. I'll go ahead and click the next button just to show you what it is. So I can click on all of these electrical or some of these other libraries that Inventor already have defined for us, but we don't need that in our case. So I'm just going to go and hit finish. And now it's going to say yes, it does not exist. Let me go back and make sure that path do exist. And now it did create it. So you can see here in the top, I do have a project name called Cooktop. It's going to be located in that Documents folder underneath Inventor and then Cooktop. Once you're done with that, make sure that there's a check beside it because that's the that tells you that it's the current one or the active one. Let's go ahead and hit the Done button now. And then this Cooktop happens to be drawn in millimeters, so I'm going to select the one that says metric. And once that is loaded up, we're going to go and we're going to create a metric standard millimeter IPT. Right? So if you watch any of my other Inventor videos, you'll see that I typically use these. This is going to create a part file, right? Let's go ahead and hit the create button. And then we're going to give Inventor some time to load up and we'll get started on creating this actual part. Once Inventor is loaded, what we're going to do is start off by creating a 2D sketch. And I'm going to wind up, just to kind of give you a preview, I'm going to wind up revolving this shape. So I'm just going to select this icon here. Once I select it, it's going to ask me for a plane. Now, since I'm doing a revolve, anything that revolves around the y-axis is going to be one of those planes that I select. So I'm just going to select the XY plane. You'll notice where I'm clicking on it at, because if I click up here in the top corner, what it tends to do is that when it rotates around, it'll keep the orientation in the right view. So it's kind of one of my little tips that I like to use, right? Next thing, what I usually do is I'll just start off and I'll start creating, right? I know that it's going to go from this center, and then I'll kind of drag out here and kind of create the shape that I want to overall create, right? So I'm just going to do this. And then as I need to get rid of something or do something along that line, I will do that, right? Now this part actually doesn't actually go all the way to here. It stops somewhere in here. So I'll go ahead and let's see. Well, yeah, I'll stop it here. And let's come down here. And then we have another shape that kind of does something like here. Okay. And that should be well enough for what we need, right? I'm going to go ahead and kind of finish up some of this stuff and let's do our dimensions and get everything right in the location. But before I do that, I'm going to give myself an axis of revolution going right here. Like I said before, I'm going to spin it around the y-axis. So therefore, I'm going to go to Project Geometry. I'm going to select in the drop down here in my origins. And once again, I can see here that the y-axis is pointing up. So I'm going to select the y-axis here. Hit Escape. You can see that I have a yellow y-axis, and depending on whatever color your screen is, yours may be a different color. I'm going to select that axis. And then I'm going to tell Inventor that I want that to be a center line, right? So now once I tell it that it's a center line, I don't know if you could see it, but it kind of has the long line and then a short line, long line and short line, right? All right, let's go ahead and put some dimensions on this. The first thing I like to do is usually put my longest dimension on, which if I go to the dimension, I'm going to select this center line first, and then I'm going to select this line here. All right, so once I select that, I'm going to click here, and that length happens to be 55.6. All right, so the next length that I have is that I know that the length of let's see, this point here. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that dimension in next. Let's go to Dimension, select our center line again. We're going to select this endpoint, and I'm going to place that dimension. And then this one happens to be a distance of 48. Alright, and my next distance is going to be from here to here, which is going to be 26. So I'm just going to go a dimension from this center line to this line here, and I'll place that. It's going to be 26. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to extend this line over to here. So I'm going to use the extend. I'll go ahead and select that line. Now you can see that that will extend all the way over. Let's go ahead and put some of our taller dimensions on this. Alright, so our first dimension here is going to be from this bottom line here to this top line. Go ahead and place that dimension. And it has a height of, let's see what it looks like, 10.49. Alright, the next one is I'm going to have to figure out what that gap is. And you can see both of those numbers here. So I'm just going to use the 4.49, 2.4, and you already see me use the 10.49. So back to dimensioning this. So this dimension from here to here is going to be my 2.4. And then my final dimension is going to be from here to here. Once I place that dimension, it's going to be a height of, let's see, where am I looking at it? It's 4.49. Right? And let's see, it still says that I need a few more dimensions. Let's see if I put my major dimension here. That's going to kind of make this symmetrical about this center point here. So I'm just going to do a dimension from this bottom line here to that center point. I'm going to click and place my dimension. And then I'll select the 10.5 and divide that by 2. And you saw me do a divide by 5. Let me double click on that and change that number to 2. Alright, and then I have a couple of more dimensions to put on here. Actually, it looks like I need to adjust some numbers. Let's move this one down here. That dimension actually went from here, which is 28. And then I'm going to adjust this one here in a second. So I'm just going to go to Dimension. I'm going to go back to this center line. I'm going to place a dimension to here. And that number has to be 28. And then finally, let's go ahead and shrink this down. Because I'm looking at the drawing there. There is an opening there, but it doesn't define how big that true opening is on a 2D drawing. But that's going to be something that we can discuss. It's just more or less an eye here. So I'm just going to make that revolve all the way to this tip. All right. And then I'm kind of looking at the bottom to find that last dimension that I need. And as you can see, when I extended that bottom line there, this is going to be the point that has some freedom to move, right? So I got a couple of different options here. I can always use a coincidence and place this endpoint onto that one. And now you can see that that will fully constrain it. Or I could have drawn a line down there and kind of did some of the same stuff with that. But overall, this is going to be the eye that I'm going to need to revolve. So let's go ahead and go to Finish Sketch. Let's take a look at Revolve and let's see if this is going to actually give me a problem by it being opening. In our case, I don't think it will. Let's go ahead and select both of these. The axis of revolution is going to be this yellow one. And then it kind of creates our part, right? And what I like to do now is I'm just going to kind of take a comparison of both of them, and then we'll kind of see what we have here. Now, if we're kind of taking a look at both of these, we see that there's a vertical line that's running through both sides here. So in the beginning, when I first started looking at that, I thought it was originally an opening. But in our case, we can add that into the 2D portion just by adding a sketch or doing some things of that nature. It's really not there, and to the overall relevance of this drawing, that line kind of does not need to be there, and I just wanted to make sure I clarified that before we go any further with this one. But so far as I know, the shape right now is ready to go. Let's go ahead and put these kind of limbs on there on the sides of it, and then everything from there should be fine. Alright, so let's go ahead and put another sketch on this one, and once again I can use either the XY plane or the YZ plane. Either one is fine with me. I'm just going to go ahead and use the XY. I'm going to create a sketch on this one. And what I usually like to do is slice the geometry. So I'm going to select this icon here at the bottom, or you can hit F7. What that does is it's going to slice it to the middle. And what I want to do is create right on this endpoint, right? So that's where I want to create my line from. I'm going to start a line, and I'm going to place it at that endpoint. And I'm just going to kind of freehand sketch that. I'm going to go up here. I know that this shape looks something along this line. And you can see that I did put that at a bad angle, but that'll be okay. Well, since I kind of went down that road, let's make all of them bad angles. Okay. I can always come back and select horizontal and place these correctly. That one actually happened to be horizontal. Let's go ahead and select the one at the top. And then we're going to make this one vertical. So, okay, so all of that is fixed now. Next thing I'm going to do is that I know that the length of this thing is 26. And I know that this length here at the bottom is 6. Right, so let's go ahead and place those two dimensions. This dimension here is 6. And then this overall dimension here is going to be 26. Alright, the height from this going down to the bottom here going up is 18. So let's go ahead and place that dimension on here. This is going to be 18. Right? And then we know that the thickness of here should be 3.2. Alright. And now the last thing I need is going to be, let's see. I see I got a couple of black lines here, and what I like to do is just grab these and make sure that they can move. So you can see that it did not actually stick at that point there. Let's just go ahead and put a coincidence there. From that endpoint to that endpoint. Now when I look down at the bottom, it's fully constrained. The next thing I'm going to need is the thickness of this, which is going to be 4. So when I go to Finish Sketch, just kind of zoom out a little bit. Let's extrude this. I'm going to tell it go in both directions, and then I'm going to give it a distance of 4. Alright. Then last thing that I need to do with this part is I need to create a copies of this, right? So the way we're going to do that is with a circular array. It's going to ask me to select the feature. It's just going to be this last extrusion. I'm going to click on axis of revolution. It's going to go around the same y-axis, so I'm just going to select the y-axis here. And then I'm going to tell it how many I have. In our case, we have 4 of them. And now when I take a look at this, it should look just like that eye that I was drawing when I was in AutoCAD, right? Last step we need to do for this one, let's go ahead and save this. And you can see that it did put it in this folder called Cooktop. And I'm just going to call this an eye. Alright, let's go ahead and hit the save button on this one. And I usually like to go ahead and isometric it a little bit, and then I'll hit the save button. And then let's start working on our second part. Okay, so the good news is that the other parts we're going to create are going to be a lot more simpler than this one. And I just now thought about something as I was kind of looking at this more. Let's go ahead and put that circle here. And I'll show you how to edit some stuff that you've already done. So you remember that we created the first part with the revolve command. If I click the plus here and expand this, you're going to see a sketch should be underneath it. When that sketch appears, I want you to double click on this icon here. So I'm just going to double click there. And that should bring me back to the sketch. Now remember that, and I'm just going to zoom in here. Remember that we made this a 0 dimension on this sketch. And a huge benefit to that is that if we ever have to come back and change that, we can do that. So if I wanted to make this number 28, you will see that it will create that sharp edge there. And then if I go to finish sketch, and it looks like it's going to kind of give me a little error there. Let's go back to the revolve. Then I'm double clicking on that icon. The profiles is actually just changed. Let's make sure I get the one at the bottom. And when I hit OK, you're going to see that now it has that opening in it. So it's kind of depending on how you see that. And this will create that line that we're going to need when we do the 2D sketch, right? So I'll leave it at that. Let's go ahead and knock out the other two parts. This one should, like I said, this was the most complicated one on this one. The other two are more or less cylinders and a box. All right. So I'm just going to click the icon up here at the top and go to New. Once the dialog box appears, I am going to use a standard millimeter IPT again. And I'm just going to hit the Create button. And I'm going to give Inventor a second to load up. Once this is done, this should be a simple one. Let's go ahead and create a 2D sketch. We're going to select here on the XZ plane. And like I said, if I click somewhere, doesn't matter on this one, it's going to be a cylindrical part. But you can see that the word is top is kind of sideways. And that kind of depending on where you select on that first plane. But I'm just going to go ahead and draw a couple of this circle. And this one has a diameter. Now you can see that mine is reading a diameter. If yours is reading a radius, do a right click at this point. And when your menu comes up to the side, you're going to have something that says diameter here. Mine says radius because I'm already at a diameter. But if yours is only reading a diameter, then you will have that option to change it here, right? Let's click off of this and then I'll go ahead and put in my diameter. Let's go ahead and place that diameter here. This is 14. And then let's do my other circle that has a diameter. So I'm going to click here, and this diameter here is going to be 6. All right, that's all I need. Go ahead and finish sketch. Then go ahead and use the extrude command. I'm going to select right in between these two. I'm going to tail it to go symmetric, and the overall height of this will be 6. All right. Now I'm done with the knob. That's all I need to do on this knob. So let's go ahead and hit the save button. This is part number 2. So I'm just going to call it knob. Save this. The one thing I do like about Inventor as well as AutoCAD that you can see here at the bottom, and if I need to switch between any of these parts, they're located here along the bottom. So that's something that's super easy and beneficial. So if there's something on one of these parts that I need to go and change, it's easier just to go back and click on the icon, and then here I am, and I can go ahead and edit any of this stuff that I want to use. All right, so let's go ahead and create our third and final part, which is the actual cooktop here. So I'm going to go back up to the new icon here at the top. Once again, I'm going to select the standard millimeter IPT, and it looks like it jumped back to the English one. Give it 1 second here for the other windows to come down. So I'm just going to select that icon. I'll click on the metric, and then I'm going to go back to the standard millimeter IPT. Let's go ahead and hit the create button. And like I said, this one is going to be simple as well. It's just a box, so to say. Let's go ahead and select here. And this time I'm going to select on this side of my icon here. I should have selected on the top half of it, but the bottom it rotated it at the top. But I'm just going to rotate this orientation so the word top reads correctly. Underneath the rectangle, I'm going to use a center point one. So a 2-point center rectangle. I'm going to click here as my center. And then I'm going to kind of give a preview of my rectangle. So at this point, I can start typing in numbers. I can type in 216. And then if you hit the tab button, it'll switch you over to the other side. And then I can type in 176. And then I can hit enter. And now the box is actually created. Let's go ahead and hit the finish sketch. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Go to extrude. Tell it to go both directions. And then I'm going to give it a height of 8. Go ahead and hit OK. Let's go ahead and actually zoom in a little bit more to it. And then we're going to save this one just like we did the others. So I'm going to hit the save button. Let's call this the actual cooktop, right? Alright, so now it's all saved. I got all 3 of my parts saved. Now we're ready to start on an assembly. Okay, so when it comes to assembly, I'm going to select the new icon here at the top. And so what we're going to do now is look at a standard millimeter IAM, because that's going to be the part that we're going to create. So remember that Inventor separates its files, differentiating between a part file and then the assembly. The last step that we're going to learn is going to be the drawing file, but that's going to be in another video, right? So look forward to that one. And if we have time, I might actually show you a little bit about presentation as well as in the drafting one, because all of these kind of flow together. If I wanted to make an exploded assembly, and I know this is only 3 components, then your presentation one will actually create an exploded assembly for you. But like I said, this is 3 parts. I might kind of gloss over it and just show you a little bit of what it does in preference to showing you what your actual drawing file is. So, but that'll be in a separate video. In this one, let's go ahead and assemble this thing together. So we have the standard millimeter IAM. Let's go ahead and hit the create button. And then if we're kind of watching along here at the bottom, it's kind of loading out things, and then we should get a new part here at the bottom. Alright, so once this loads up, you make sure that you do have assembly here at the bottom. That's what we're in. Our ribbon has changed now. So you can see now we're in the part to where we're going to start assembling some things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in my cooktop, since that's going to be the base of everything, what I'm going to place it on, right? So in the drop down here, you have different options. We don't have to worry about these, although if we had some kind of standard parts or things of that nature, we could get into the content center. But all we need to do is just use the place one. We have our parts created. Let's go ahead and hit the place button. It's going to ask me which one of these do I want to bring in. Now this is the benefit of having things in a project, because it keeps all of this stuff organized for you. You're not searching through 1,000,001 different files. You're only looking through where these folders are, right? So in my cooktop, I want the cooktop one. I'm going to select open. And then you kind of hover around and you can see that that part is actually following you around. Now do not left click at this point. I want you to do a right click. And then I want you to select place grounded at origin. So once I do that, it's going to automatically place that one grounded at the origin, and then hit the escape button. This is one of those things that's tricky. If you don't hit the escape button and you keep left clicking, it will keep placing each of these cooktops as many as you want. Alright, some of the stuff over here, you got some benefits that you see. I have my cooktop in, and I have a black dot that's to the left of it. That black dot there means that it is already fully constrained. That means that this part can't be moved. I can verify that by left clicking and dragging, and you can see that this thing don't move. And even when I hover over it, you see a little thumbtack saying that it is grounded. Alright, let's go ahead and bring in our eye next. So I'm going to go back to the place icon, and if you don't want to select here in the drop down, you see that at the top here, that's the last one I used. So I'm just going to go ahead and select place. In this one, I'm going to actually find the eye. I'll go to open, and then I'm going to place it here. Alright, so some of the things that I'm going to use to place this, and I know the dimensions that I needed. I need this to be 52.4 from that edge, or this face going this direction, and 48 coming up this direction. Now we're going to get into doing some constraints. So I'm going to go to constraint. I'm going to leave it on this mate type. I'm going to select this face. And then in my eye here, I'm just going to expand it a little bit. And then I'm going to expand the origin. And then I'm going to find the origin that's cutting through, that's going at the same angle as this one is, or parallel to it. So I'm going to select the XY plane here. And you're going to see that it will bring that, and you see that it did flip it upside down. I'm going to flip that to a flush. And then from here, I'm going to type in the distance that I need it to go. And so like I said, this is going from this bottom face So it needs to go up this direction 48. So I'm going to type in 48 here. And you see that it went the other direction. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a negative in front of it, and then it's going to type it and send it that way. Go ahead and hit the OK button. I'm going to rotate underneath this thing by selecting this icon here. I'm going to go back to the constraint. I'm going to select this bottom face. Let's go ahead and take back a look at the top, and then I'm going to select this top face here, and that should bring this eye up to this level. Go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to rotate this around by selecting here, and then I'm going to move this over to this direction, right? So I'm going to go back to the constraint. I'm going to select this face. And then I'm going to select this eye, right? I need the plane that's going that direction. So I'm going to select the YZ plane. And you're going to see that it automatically assumes that that's what I want to do. And then I'm going to type in the number that I need it to go, which is 52.04. You see that it's going the wrong direction, so just go ahead and put a negative in front of that, and that should send it the right direction. Okay, so you can see that both of these are kind of gray. I'm going to change the colors on this so you can see this a lot better. So I'm just going to select my cooktop first, and then I'm going to come up underneath the appearance under here, and this has default selected. I want you to select the drop down next to it, and let's go ahead and make it something like a light red. So that way I can actually see what's going on. So now you see that shows up as a light red. Let's go ahead and collapse the eye now. You can see that the eye is fully constrained. I'm going to go ahead and select the eye now. And I'm going to go up here where it says default. And let's go ahead and make this a different color as well. Let's see, what's a good color? Let's use the olive green. All right. So now we can see those two colors on here. We have our eye and we have our cooktop. Now we can also use patterns to create multiple of these, or you can bring in more of these. In this case, all of these are spaced out easily, so I'm just going to go ahead and use a pattern. So I'm going to select the pattern. I'm going to select the component first because that's what it's asking me, so go ahead and select your eye here. And then you need to choose which one of the array components that you want to use, or what type of pattern you want to use. I'm going to select rectangular. And then I have this red icon, so I'm going to select the direction that I need it to go. I want it to go that direction. You see I'm verifying it by the arrow. I'm going to tell it the spacing that I have here, which is going to be 80. And then I'm going to select the row one. I'm going to select the direction. And you see the arrow is facing that direction now. And you can reverse these directions of these arrows just by selecting these flip handles here. But I'm going to go ahead and make that 80 as well. And what I mean by you can reverse the direction is that if I hit the flip on this, you're going to see that it flips it to the other side. Likewise, I can flip that way as well. So I'll go ahead and flip them back. And now you see that all of my eyes are located. Let's go ahead and hit OK. Those are created. Let's take a look at this on the top view. And now I'm ready to go ahead and put in the knobs, right? So like I did before, I'm just going to go to place. I'm going to go ahead and find a knob. Go ahead and hit OK, and then I'm going to place it here. Now I usually like to work with things in an isometric view, that way I can see kind of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to select here, or I can select the home button, and that'll get me back to a isometric that I'm used to seeing, or the true isometric. Let's go ahead and select underneath here, because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to constrain this face. So let's go to constraint, select this bottom face, let's go up to the top, and then let's constrain it to here. Let's go ahead and hit the apply button. Now I know how far this is away from the top. It's going to be 40 coming down from this top face. So I'm just going to rotate around to that face. What I'm going to do is I have the knob. I'm going to expand it and I'm going to find the origin. And then what I'm looking for is the plane that's kind of running parallel to the face that I want to use. So I'm going to select the XY plane here. And I'm going to select this face here. And you can see that it did make those faces together. And then I'm going to type in a distance of 40. It's going the wrong direction. So I'm just going to make it negative in the beginning. And that'll get that situated. Go ahead and hit OK. And now I need to move this going that direction 23.04 from this face. So just like I did before, I'm going to go back to the constraint. I'm going to go find the YZ plane. And then I'm going to select this face. right? And then I'm going to type in the distance that I need it to be, which is 23.04. You see that it's actually not moving, so I'm just going to go ahead and change it to a flush. And now you see that it did move to the proper location that I need it to do. Go ahead and hit OK. And you can see now that I get the black dot. And like I did with the other one here, I'm going to use a pattern just to create these, because the distance between each of them is the exact same. So it's going to be 32. So let's go back to pattern. Remember that it says select components first. So I'm going to select this component. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and select what type of pattern I want to create, which is rectangular one. The column one, I'm going to select the arrow here, and then I'm going to select the direction. Now you see that the direction arrow is pointing this direction. Let's go ahead and use the flip. And then we're going to put the spacing between each of them, which is going to be 32. And then I need to tell it how many of these I have. So instead of 2 of them, we have 4 in this case. Go ahead and hit the OK button. I'm just going to kind of zoom in a little bit. And then go ahead and hit save. And once I save this one, I can save this one as a cooktop, because that's the name of this assembly, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And it's going to ask me, yeah, this is the initial save of that. Everything is fine on this one. And now you see that we did create that cooktop, all right? So very simple and easy assembly and creation of some parts here. Remember that the next video to this one should be me creating a drawing of it. And I might just dabble into doing a presentation for you just to show you how those knobs. So I might make those knobs just come down, as well as the eyes just come down on top of the cooktop, right? But I want to thank you for watching this. And if this is some content or you got any beneficial stuff out of this, please go ahead and hit the like, share, subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video of this one where we're actually creating a drawing. So thank you for watching again.